Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome again to Storytime with Grandma Pat. I have another Dr. Suiss book that I want to read for you, and it's called Thidwick, the Big-Hearted Moose by Dr. Suiss. And this is our book for today. Up at Lake Winnebago, the far northern shore, lives a huge herd of moose, about 60 or more. And they'll all go around in a big happy bunch, looking for nice tender moose moss to munch. Okay. They're looking for moose moss to munch on. Up at Lake Winnebago, one day, they're lunching, just strolling along and enjoying their munching, for the moose moss that day was especially fine. When it happened that Thidwick, the last moose in line, saw a bingo bag sitting, the bug called out, "Hey, it's such a loud, long road, and it's such a hot day. Would you mind if I rode on your horns for a way?" "Of course not," smiled Thidwick, the big-hearted moose. "I'm happy my antlers can be of some use. There's room there to spare, and I'm happy to share. Be my guest, and I hope you're comfortable there." So the bingo bug picked out a nice, easy seat, and the moose went on looking for moose moss to eat. You see the bug on his head, on his ears, on his whatever. Let's see. On his antlers. Well, an hour or so later, the bug heard a squeak, and he heard a small voice of a tree spider speak. "I say," said the spider, "you've got a fine place. That moose seems quite friendly, has such a nice face. If I got on too, do you think you would mind?" "Hop aboard," laughed the bug, "and I think that you'll be fine. That the moose won't object. He's the big-hearted kind." "I accept," said the spider, with joy and delight, and he started a web on the horn to the right. What do spiders do? He's weaving his spider web. While the spider was spinning, he heard a gay song, and a fresh little zinazoo bird came along. He stopped, and he stared, and he chirped, "Well, well, well, what a smart place to build. What a great place to dwell. I've been living on a tree ever since I was born. And here's something new. Why not live on a horn? If there's room for two, there's room for three." "There's plenty of room," laughed the bug, "and it's free." Thidwick stopped walking. What was all that talking? These guests had caught Thidwick the moose unawares. "Hey," he called out, "what goes on up there?" He didn't know who was living in his own horns or antlers. Let's see, what are we going to find up there next? "Just building a nest, sir," said the zinazoo, and began yanking hairs out of poor Thidwick's head, and he plucked out exactly 204. "Don't worry," he laughed, "you can always grow more." Then he dozed off to sleep in his fine moose hair nest. "This bird," murmured Thidwick, "is sort of a pest. But I'm a good sport, so I'll just let him rest. For a host, above all, must be nice to his guests." Can you see him there? Thidwick the moose. Besides, now it's getting quite late in the day, and surely tomorrow they'll all go away. But alas, the next morning, the sun's early light brought to Thidwick's sad eyes a most welcome sight. "Meet my wife," said the bird. "I was married last night, and perhaps, by the way, I should mention to you that her uncle is coming to live with us too." "You're a fine host, so I knew you'd be willing." Well, again, I think that's just taking advantage. They didn't ask him. They moved in, and they're staying and bringing all their friends. And that's not a very nice thing. Then the uncle, a woodpecker, started in drilling. All Thidwick's friends shouted, "Get rid of those pests." "I would, but I can't," sobbed the poor Thidwick. "They're guests." "Guests indeed," his friends answered, and all of them frowned. "If those are your guests, we don't want you around. You can't stay with us, 'cause you're just not our sort." And they all turned their backs and walked off with a snort. Oh my goodness. Because of all of the guests and pests in Thidwick's horns or antlers, all of his other friends have left him. So what is he going to do? Now the big friendless moose walked alone and forlorn, for 4 great big woodpecker holes in his horn. "What holes?" whispered Herman, a squirrel who spied them. "What holes to hide nuts in?" Mind if I try them?" "They're yours," called the woodpecker. "Get right in there." Inside, this big-hearted moose runs a public hotel. But your nuts, bring your wife, bring your children as well. So the whole squirrel family all jumped on, and pell-mell. My goodness, what is this poor moose going to do? How is he going to be able to get rid of all of these guests that have made themselves pests in his house, in his horns? And the very next thing the poor animal knew, a bobcat and turtle were living there too. Now, what was the big-hearted moose going to do? Well, what would you do if it happened to you? You couldn't say scat, 'cause that wouldn't be right. You couldn't shout scram, 'cause that isn't polite. A host has to put up with all kinds of pests, for the host, above all, must be nice to his guests. So you tried hard to smile, and you tried to look sweet, and you go right on looking for moose moss to eat. But he's by himself now. He doesn't have any of his friends. It's just these other guests that have come to live and make a nest. But now it was winter, and that wasn't easy, for moose moss gets scarce when the weather gets freezy. The food was soon gone on the cold northern shore of Lake Winnebago. There just was no more. And all Thidwick's friends swam away in a bunch to the south of the lake, where there's moose moss to munch. He watched the herd leaving, and then Thidwick knew he'd starve if he stayed here. He'd have to move too. So all of the moose are moving to the other part of the lake, because that's where the food is. So let's see what's going to happen. He stepped in the water. Then, oh, what a fuss. "Stop," screamed his guest. "You can't do this to us. These horns are our home, and you've no right to take our home to the far distant side of the lake. Be fair," Thidwick begged, with a lump in his throat. "We're fair," said the bug. "We'll decide this by vote. All those in favor of going say aye. All those in favor of staying say nay." "Aye," shouted Thidwick. But when he was done, is he going to be outnumbered with his own head? Nay, they all yelled. He lost 11-1. We win, screamed the guests, by a great large score, and poor starving Thidwick climbed back on the shore. Then, do you know what those pests did? They asked in some more. So let's see what's going to happen now. Oh, his whole head is just... Here we go. They asked in a fox who jumped in from the trees. They asked in some mice, and they asked in some fleas. They asked a big bear in, and then, if you please, came a swarm of 362 bees. Poor Thidwick sank down with a groan to his knees, and then came something that made his heart freeze. Oh my goodness. They're just all over Thidwick. He doesn't know what to do. Bullets came zinging right past Thidwick's face. Guns were bang, binging all over the place. Get that moose, get that moose. Thidwick heard a voice call. Fire again and again, and shoot straight, one and all. We must get his head for the Harvard Club wall. Oh my goodness. Thidwick is stuck. He's there by himself, and all the hunters are there, and he's the one moose that they see that they're all trying to get. Thidwick took to his heels with that load on his head. With 500 pounds on his horns, the moose fled. He could have run faster without all those pests, but a host above all must be nice to his guests. Up canyon, off cliff, over rocky road trail, with bullets bang bouncing around him like hail. Up gully, through gulch, and down slippery sluice, with his hard-hearted guests, race the soft-hearted moose. Oh my goodness. He's running for his life, and they don't think anything of it. They don't care about him at all. It's just about themselves. Uh-oh, they finally had bagged him. Then finally they bagged him. Oh my goodness. Because those pests, he had run out of luck. Because of those guests on his horns, he was stuck. He gasped, he felt faint, and the whole world grew fuzzy. Thidwick was finished completely, or was he? The hunter is right in his face, about to shoot him in his head. And his guests are still there, looking on, I guess, in fright. So let's see. Finished. Not Thidwick, decidedly not. It's true, he was in the most terrible spot, but now he remembered a thing he'd forgot. A wonderful something that happens each year to the horns of old moose and the horns of all deer. Today was the day Thidwick happened to know. What do you think's going to happen? All right, let's see. That old horn comes off so that new ones can grow. And he yelled to the pests on his horns as he threw them. You wanted my horns? Now you're quite welcome to them. Keep them, they're yours. As for me, I shall take myself to the far distant side of the lake. His horns came off with the guest pests, and he took off running to the other side of the lake. And he swam Winnebago and found his old bunch and arrived just in time for a wonderful lunch. At the south of the lake, where there's moose moss to munch. So he made it back to his friends. And now he's got something to eat. So I don't think he'll ever let anybody take up residence or live in his horns when his new ones grow. And here he are. Here he is the next year, and he has new horns that are growing for him. Thidwick, the big-hearted moose. I think he learned a lesson. It's nice to be nice, but you can't let friends or whoever take advantage of you. It's nice to share, but you don't have to share your everything. You have to keep something for yourself. All right, Thidwick and the Big-Hearted Moose by Dr. Suiss. I got tongue-tied a bit there, but we made it through. So see you next time, boys and girls, with Story Time with Grandma Pat. All right, you have a good evening. Thank you.